In the heart of Umuahia, an ancient family compound whispers secrets of a past Neka Okoro never knew. But some secrets refuse to stay buried, and as she unearths them, she discovers that the walls themselves are alive and they are calling her home to a nightmare she can't escape. Neka Okoro stepped out of the air conditioned car, the humid Umuahia air immediately embracing her like a thick, warm blanket. The scent of dust, exhaust fumes, and distant cooking fires filled her nostrils, a stark contrast to the crisp, sanitized air of London she had grown accustomed to. She adjusted the strap of her designer handbag, her eyes scanning the sprawling, dilapidated compound before her. This was it, the ancestral home, a place she had only heard about in hushed tones during infrequent family gatherings, now her responsibility. It's bigger than I imagined, she murmured, more to herself than to the driver who was already wresting her luggage from the boot. The compound walls, once a proud ochre, were now faded and cracked, swallowed in parts by aggressive vines. Beyond them, the main house loomed, a relic of a bygone era, its once grand facade now marred by peeling paint and broken windows. A shiver, unrelated to the heat, traced its way down her spine. Nneka, a brilliant architect with a portfolio of sleek, modern designs, had returned to Umuahia with a singular purpose: to transform this decaying monument into a contemporary masterpiece. Her family, scattered across the globe, had entrusted her with this daunting task, hoping to breathe new life into their roots. But as she stood there, a strange sense of unease settled over her. The compound, despite its size, felt unnervingly quiet, a silence that seemed to absorb the distant city sounds rather than reflect them. Days turned into a whirlwind of activity. Local contractors, a mix of seasoned builders and eager young apprentices, swarmed the compound. The air buzzed with the clang of hammers, the whir of power tools, and the rhythmic chants of workers hauling debris. Nneka, in her hard hat and safety vest, moved with purpose, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Yet, amidst the organized chaos, subtle anomalies began to surface. It started small, a faint whisper, like dry leaves rustling on a windless day, would sometimes brush past her ear when she was alone in a room. She'd spin around, expecting to see a walker, but find only empty space. Then, objects would shift. A measuring tape she'd left on a dusty windowsill would reappear on a different table. A stack of blueprints, carefully arranged, would be found slightly askew, as if disturbed by an unseen hand. Nneka, ever the pragmatist, attributed these incidents to fatigue, the stress of the project, or simply the quirks of an old settling house. This place has a mind of its own, Nneka, one of the older workers, Papa Emeka, had chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. Old houses, they remember things. They have spirits. Nneka had offered a polite, dismissive smile. Spirits? She dealt with blueprints and structural integrity, not folklore. Yet the whispers persisted, sometimes forming indistinct, fragmented words, just beyond the grasp of her understanding. And the shadows, they seemed to dance in her peripheral vision, darting away the moment she tried to focus on them. She told herself it was her imagination, playing tricks in the dim, dust filled corners of the old house. One sweltering afternoon, as the sun beat down relentlessly, Papa Emeka approached her, his face a mixture of awe and apprehension. Madame Nneka, he began, his voice a low rumble. We found something. Something strange. He led her to a section of the house that had once been a pantry, now stripped bare. Behind a crumbling plaster wall, where a new doorway was meant to be, a hidden space had been revealed. It wasn't a small alcove, it was a room, perfectly concealed, with no visible entrance from the outside. The air emanating from it was cool, almost unnaturally so, carrying a faint earthy scent. It was sealed tight, Papa Emeka explained, gesturing to the remnants of ancient brickwork, like they didn't want anyone to ever find it. Nneka, her architectural curiosity piqued, stepped cautiously into the newly revealed chamber. It was small, circular, and surprisingly intact. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of sunlight that pierced a high, narrow vent. Her eyes widened as she took in the contents. Arranged neatly on a low wooden shelf were several clay pots, intricately decorated with symbols she didn't recognize. Beside them, a collection of dried herbs hung from the ceiling, their brittle leaves rustling faintly in the imperceptible breeze. In the center of the room, on a small carved stool, lay a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. She reached for the journal, her fingers tracing the faded gold lettering on its cover. It was written in Igbo, a language she understood but rarely spoke. The script was elegant, flowing, clearly the hand of someone educated. As she opened it, the scent of old paper and something else, something vaguely floral and metallic, wafted up. The first few pages were filled with what appeared to be daily observations, mundane details of life in Umuahia decades ago. But as she flipped further, her gaze caught a recurring phrase written with increasing urgency and fear. Onye na akpa ikenime magbidi, the one who stares within the walls. Her heart began to pound, a frantic drum against her ribs. She recognized the handwriting. It was her great-grandmother's, a woman renowned in local law, not just for her storytelling, but for her deep knowledge of traditional medicine and spiritual practices. A woman whispered to have communed with the unseen. Nneka's pragmatic mind screamed for a rational explanation. A hidden room, perhaps a safe room or a place for storing valuables. The journal, a diary filled with the superstitions of a bygone era. Yet, the unsettling quiet of the compound, the whispers, the shifting shadows, all coalesced into a chilling realization. This wasn't just an old house settling, this was something else entirely. And her great grandmother, it seemed, knew exactly what it was. She turned another page, her eyes darting across the elegant script, trying to decipher the increasingly frantic entries. The words blurred, but the sense of dread sharpened. The journal wasn't just a record, it was a warning, a desperate plea from the past. And as she read the final chilling sentence on the page, a cold dread seeped into her bones, solidifying the unsettling truth. Oge na agwuem, ona abia maka oga abia maka gikwa. My time is running out. It is coming for me. It will come for you too. Nneka looked up, her breath catching in her throat. The faint whispers in the compound seemed to grow louder, more distinct, no longer just rustling leaves, but a chorus of unseen voices swirling around her, echoing the chilling prophecy from the journal. She was not alone in this old house, and whatever her great-grandmother had fought, whatever she had tried to bind within these walls, was now stirring, and it was waiting for her. Nneka stumbled back from the journal, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. The whispers, once faint and fleeting, now seemed to coalesce into a chilling symphony, swirling around her in the hidden room. She clutched the ancient book to her chest, its worn leather feeling strangely warm against her trembling fingers. Her great-grandmother's words, a desperate plea from beyond the grave, echoed in her mind. It will come for you too. She burst out of the hidden room, blinking in the harsh afternoon light. Papa Emeka and his crew looked at her, their faces etched with concern. Madame Nneka, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. No, she managed, her voice a shaky whisper. Just the dust. It's thick in there. She forced a smile, trying to regain her composure, but her mind raced. A ghost? A pragmatic mind scoffed at the notion, yet the cold dread that had settled in her stomach refused to dissipate. That night, sleep offered no escape. The whispers followed her, weaving through her dreams, twisting into fragmented sentences that spoke of ancient pacts and restless spirits. She woke with a gasp, drenched in sweat, the chilling words of the journal still ringing in her ears. She knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. The next morning, Nneka sought out her auntie Nosy. Her aunt, a woman whose faith was as unshakable as the ancient Iroko trees that dotted the Umuahia landscape, listened patiently, her eyes filled with a knowing sadness. Nneka, trying to maintain a semblance of rationality, described the hidden room, the journal, and the unsettling occurrences, carefully omitting the most supernatural details. My dear Nneka, Auntie Ngozi said, her voice soft but firm. Some things cannot be explained by your books and your modern ways. This compound, it has a history. Your great grandmother, she was a powerful woman, a spiritualist. She walked between worlds. Nneka bristled. Auntie, please. I'm an architect, not a witch doctor. There must be a logical explanation for all of this. Auntie Ngozi simply shook her head. The spirits do not care for logic, child. They care for respect. And sometimes they demand attention. She then urged Nneka to consult with Elder Obina, a respected traditionalist in the community. Nneka, still clinging to her skepticism, politely declined, promising to look into it herself. Our next call was to Chinedu, her childhood friend, now a historian. He arrived at the compound with a stack of old texts and a healthy dose of academic curiosity. Nneka, feeling more comfortable with his pragmatic approach, showed him the hidden room and the journal. Chinedu, fascinated, began to pore over the journal, his brow furrowed in concentration. This is incredible, Nneka, he said, his voice hushed. Your great-grandmother was clearly a remarkable woman. These entries, they speak of an Ogbanje, a child spirit that dies and is reborn, causing sorrow. It seems she believed she had trapped one within these walls. Nneka felt a chill, an Ogbanje. She had heard the folktales as a child, stories of mischievous spirits that tormented families, but to think her own great-grandmother had battled one, it was too much to comprehend. As days turned into nights, the manifestations intensified. The whispers grew clearer, no longer indistinct murmurs, but coherent sentences, taunting Nneka. You cannot escape, a voice would hiss from the shadows. You are ours now. Objects didn't just shift, they were thrown with violent force. A heavy clay pot shattered against a wall, narrowly missing Nneka. Apparitions, once fleeting shadows, became more distinct. A fleeting glimpse of a child's face in a darkened doorway, a shadowy figure lurking at the edge of her vision. One evening, Nneka was working late in the main hall, poring over blueprints, when the lights flickered and died, plunging the compound into oppressive darkness. A cold wind swept through the room, rattling the windows. Then, from the deepest corners of the house, a child's mournful cry echoed, growing louder, more desperate, until it filled the entire compound. Nneka's heart pounded, her breath catching in her throat. She fumbled for her phone, its flashlight beam cutting a weak path through the inky blackness. The cries continued, circling her, pressing in. She could feel an icy presence, a suffocating weight in the air. Panic seized her. This was no longer just an old house settling. This was real. She bolted for the main gate, her feet pounding on the dusty ground. She had to get out. She had to escape this nightmare. The gate, a heavy wooden structure, was usually left ajar during the day for the workers, but now it was firmly shut. The ancient lock rusted and unyielding. She tugged, she pushed, she clawed at the rough wood, but it wouldn't budge. The mournful cries from within the compound grew louder, closer, accompanied by a chilling childlike giggle. Nneka turned, her eyes wide with terror, and saw it. A small, shadowy figure standing at the entrance of the main house, its eyes glowing with an eerie red light. It raised a tiny, translucent hand and beckoned to her. A silent, unseen force pulled at her, drawing her back towards the house, towards the darkness, towards the source of the chilling cries. She fought against it, her muscles screaming in protest, but it was futile. The gate remained locked, and the unseen pull grew stronger, dragging her, step by agonizing step, back into the heart of the compound, back towards the shadowy figure that waited for her, its red eyes burning in the darkness. She was trapped, and the whispers, now a triumphant chorus, filled her ears. You cannot leave. You are home. The unseen force dragged Nneka back into the compound, her scream swallowed by the oppressive darkness. The shadowy figure at the entrance of the main house seemed to grow, its red eyes burning brighter, beckoning her deeper into the nightmare. Just as she felt herself losing consciousness, a blinding flash of light erupted from the compound's entrance, followed by a guttural roar that shook the very foundations of the old house. The shadowy figure recoiled, its form flickering, and the suffocating pull on Nneka vanished. She collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, her body trembling. Through blurry eyes, she saw Auntie Ngozi, her face grim, standing at the gate, clutching a worn Bible. Beside her, Chinedu, looking pale but determined, held a flickering lantern. Behind them, Elder Obina, his face a mask of serene concentration, stood with his eyes closed, chanting softly in a language Nneka didn't understand. The air crackled with an unseen energy, a battle of wills playing out in the darkness. Nneka, are you all right? Auntie Nosy rushed to her side, helping her up. We heard your cries. I knew you would need help. Nneka could only nod, still disoriented. It pulled me back. Elder Obina opened his eyes, his gaze piercing. The spirit is strong. It feeds on fear, but it is not an Ogbanje, as your great-grandmother believed. This is a Nwa-Amu. Chinedu, ever the historian, interjected. Nwa-Amu, a child of thunder, a spirit of chaos and destruction. But those are legends, Elder. Legends are often born from truth, my son. Elder Obina replied, his voice calm. Your great-grandmother, in her wisdom, sought to bind it to protect her family, but she misunderstood its true nature. She bound chaos, not a mischievous child, and now it seeks to break free. He explained that the Nwa-Amu, a primordial force, had been mistakenly contained, its chaotic energy festering within the compound's walls. The ritual her great-grandmother had performed was incomplete, a temporary measure that had only amplified its power. To truly banish it, or rather, to rebind it correctly, they needed to complete a more complex ritual, one that required not just ancient artifacts, but also Nneka's direct involvement. Desperate, Nneka agreed. Elder Albina guided them through the preparations. They gathered specific herbs from the overgrown garden, each with its own spiritual significance. They retrieved the ceremonial drum and a carved wooden staff from the hidden room, artifacts mentioned in her great-grandmother's journal. The ritual was to take place at the compound's oldest and most sacred spot, a clearing beneath a massive Iroko tree, said to be a gateway between worlds. As dusk settled, casting long, eerie shadows, they began. Elder Obina chanted, his voice a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. Auntie Ngozi, her face set in a determined prayer, sprinkled protective charms around the clearing. Chinedu, though clearly uncomfortable, assisted, his historical knowledge proving surprisingly useful in deciphering some of the journal's more obscure instructions. Nneka, at the center of the clearing, held the carved staff, its ancient wood feeling strangely alive in her hands. The Nwa-Amu fought back. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen presence. The whispers returned, no longer taunting but screaming, twisting into Nneka's deepest fears. Images flashed before her eyes, her architectural career crumbling, her family disappointed, her deepest insecurities laid bare. The ground beneath her feet trembled, and the iroko tree groaned as if in pain. The shadowy figure of the Nwa-Amu materialized before her, larger and more terrifying than before, its red eyes blazing with fury. It launched, its form a swirling vortex of darkness, attempting to break her concentration, to shatter her will. Focus, Nneka. Elder Obina's voice cut through the chaos. Do not let it consume you. Remember your purpose. Nneka closed her eyes, pushing back against the onslaught of fear. She focused on the staff, on the rhythmic chanting, on the unwavering faith of her aunt. She was not just an architect, she was an Okoro, a descendant of those who had walked between worlds. She opened her eyes, her gaze meeting the Nwa-Amu's fiery stare. She raised the staff, reciting the incantations from the journal, her voice surprisingly strong. The Nwa-Amu shrieked, a sound that tore through the night. It lunged again, and Nneka, in a moment of pure instinct, made a critical mistake. Instead of completing the final binding chant, she altered a word, a subtle shift in pronunciation, driven by a sudden, overwhelming surge of empathy for the tormented entity. She had intended to banish it, but instead, she had changed it. A blinding flash of light engulfed the compound, followed by a deafening roar that sent them all sprawling. The ground shook violently, and the ancient Iroko tree split down the middle with a thunderous crack. When the light faded and the ringing in their ears subsided, the compound was in ruins. Walls had crumbled, trees were uprooted, and the main house stood as a skeletal remains of its former self. But the oppressive dread was gone. The air felt lighter, almost playful. Nneka slowly pushed herself up, her body aching, her mind reeling. The Nwa-Amu was gone, or was it? A faint, almost imperceptible breeze rustled her hair, and she heard it, a soft, mischievous giggle, not menacing, but playful, like a child's secret. She looked around, but saw nothing. Auntie Ngozi and Chinedu were also slowly getting up, looking bewildered, but unharmed. Elder Obina, however, had a strange, almost amused look on his face. What? What happened? Nneka whispered, her voice hoarse. Elder Obina chuckled, a rare sound. You did not banish it, Nneka. You transformed it. You showed it compassion, and in doing so, you changed its nature. The Nwa-Amu is no longer a spirit of chaos and destruction. It is a spirit of playful mischief. Nneka stared at him, dumbfounded. A spirit of mischief? The terrifying entity that had haunted her, that had nearly driven her to madness, was now playful? It seemed impossible. Yet, the oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by a strange, almost whimsical energy. Life in the compound, or what was left of it, became a series of unpredictable, often humorous events. Tools would vanish only to reappear in the most unlikely places. Blueprints would suddenly be covered in whimsical, childlike doodles. Nneka's coffee would inexplicably turn into a fizzy, fruit-flavored drink. The Nwa-Amu, now a mischievous, unseen companion, was constantly present, its playful energy manifesting in small, harmless pranks. Nneka, Initially frustrated, slowly began to adapt. She found herself laughing at the Nwa-Amu's antics, even talking to it, scolding it playfully when it went too far. Auntie Ngozi, after initial shock, found a strange peace with the transformed spirit, often leaving out small offerings of sweet fruits which would inevitably disappear. Chinedu, the pragmatic historian, began documenting the Nwa-Amu's manifestations, his research taking an unexpected, fascinating turn. Nneka realized that her great-grandmother had been right about one thing. The spirit was bound to the compound, and now to her. But it wasn't a curse. It was a unique, chaotic companionship. She found a strange comfort in its unpredictable presence, a constant reminder that the world was far more complex and wondrous than her architectural diagrams could ever capture. Her architectural designs, once rigid and conventional, began to reflect her new reality. She started incorporating playful, unexpected elements into her work, designs that seemed to defy logic yet somehow worked. Her clients, initially bewildered, were captivated by her innovative approach, her buildings becoming renowned for their unique blend of functionality and whimsical charm. The Nwa-Amu, it seemed, was not just a mischievous spirit, it was her muse, a constant source of unpredictable inspiration. The final scene shows Nneka in her newly rebuilt office within the compound, a space that, despite its modern design, still held echoes of the old house's charm. She was sketching a new building, a towering structure with gravity defying angles and a roof that seemed to ripple like water. A faint, playful whisper brushed past her ear, and a small, intricately folded paper airplane, seemingly from nowhere, landed gently on her blueprint. Nneka smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. She picked up the paper airplane, unfolded it, and saw a tiny, childlike drawing of a laughing face. She looked up, her eyes twinkling, and whispered, "You know, that's not a bad idea." The faint, playful giggle echoed in the background, a testament to the unusual, beautiful harmony she had found between the modern world and the ancient, chaotic spirit that now shared her life. The Nwa-Amu was not gone, but its nature had changed, and so had Nneka's life, forever intertwined in a dance of chaos and creativity. So you see, even the most evil of spirits, when given a second chance, became a playful companion. Thanks for staying to the end of this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you get notified when we bring to you more interesting stories.